If you mention the name Maurice Frydman to spiritual practitioners who are familiar with Advaita Vedanta and Tibetan Buddhism, not many would recognize it. Even so, Maurice was a key factor in the dissemination of the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Swami Ramdas, Ananda Mayima, and Mahatma Gandhi, and in supporting the Tibetan Buddhists as well. It was because of Maurice that I was able to stay in Ramana Maharshi's ashram, meet Nisargadatta, J. Krishnamurti, Mother Krishnabai, who was one of the foremost disciples of Swami Ramdas, and indirectly Douglas Hardy. I met Maurice for the first time when he was an energetic man of 76 and instantly felt that he had found a friend and grandfather long lost. I had gone to India in 71 to stay at Baba Muktananda's ashram in Ganeshpuri, not far from Bombay. When my 6-month visa expired, I wanted to stay in India. I gave my passport to a Hindi politician from Bombay, whom I met at Muktananda's ashram, and who said that I could get a permanent residency status. Since this was India, several months passed without resolution in sight. One day, 2 friends and I decided to go to Bombay for the purpose of satisfying our cravings for ice cream and mango lassi. But the hotels did not admit us without a passport. One of my friends had heard of Maurice Frydman and suggested that we go to his house for help. Maurice lived on Nepean C Street at the home of Mrs. Hurabai Petit, a former devotee of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Mrs. Petit was a wonderful lady, Parsi, a little younger than Maurice and almost deaf. It was usually seen at meal times, and Maurice and she had been constant companions for many years. Maurice said that when Maharshi left his body, Miss Petit saw a star across the skies of Bombay and said, "There goes Bhagavan." He had made the right moment. Miss Petit lived in the rooms in front of the apartment and spent most of her time meditating. In her youth, she had been a piano performer, playing professionally in Europe, which was sometimes considered improper behavior for a Hindu woman in those days. Education was a rare option for a woman. I remember a woman Parsi, perhaps in her 40s, a friend of Maurice and Miss Petit, who came to lunch one day. She was one of the first women to graduate from a college in India and was active in social work. She told me that Maurice had been instrumental in helping her get a better education. He then gave her great spiritual and emotional support when she was experiencing difficulties in accepting the world of work, which was totally dominated by men. Maurice welcomed and fed everyone at his door, and there were many people. After questioning me sharply, as he did with many of his guests, a skill for which Maurice was famous, he offered me an exchange. I could stay with him if I helped him to pack and send to Poland the books he had published. I do not think Maurice needed to question people because he already knew the answers. It felt as if he held your heart in the palm of his hands and could examine it in detail. From the spark of his eyes, however, he obviously enjoyed it. He saw everyone clearly and allowed no dishonesty. A lot of deflated egos left their table being better people. That was the beginning of an 18-month relationship during which I helped Maurice with many of his social projects, but mostly to pack books for the Hindu Polish library, to interview Nisargadatta, and later to edit the manuscript to be published as I Am That. Although he did not really need to help with the book, as he was a brilliant writer in many languages, this work became one of the ways he taught me the importance of making every detail look good. Together, we were going to interview Nisargadatta once a week, though I think Maurice had started the interviews about a year before I knew him. Maurice spoke Marathi, the local language, fluently, as well as Hindi, Polish, Russian, French, English, and many other languages. Maharaj was very fond of Maurice, and once Maurice was injured in a collision with a scooter and could not leave the house for a few weeks. We were surprised by a spontaneous visit by Maharaj, who walked all the way with the help of one of his sons, worried that Maurice would not be able to continue his regular visits. Maharaj must have walked more than an hour to get to Maurice's house. Nisargadatta welcomed the visitors into a small room above the house of his family. He sat near the front window with a bidi, a cigarette in his hand, and excitedly answered our questions, which were recorded by Maurice. In a recent video about Nisargadatta Maharaj, produced by Inner Directions, it looked as if the room had been reorganized since those days. Maharaj and Maurice were alike in many ways. Both were inflexible as to truth and had a similar intensity that could be mistaken for anger, but it was more the fire of their enlightened compassion. In fact, all the masters with whom Maurice had been implicated were thus, except perhaps Swami Ramdas. Although Maharaj is famous as a Vedantic, I was struck by the intensity of his puja and his devout worship. When the time came for the puja, all talk ceased. Maharaj took his great cymbals and began to worship and sing to the utmost of his lungs. It was true devotion. Maurice spoke very little about his past. The only extensive biographical material I know of is from Appa Pant, a retired Hindu diplomat, the Prince of Un, and later V. Ganeshan's work. Pant was Maurice's disciple for 40 years. In addition, there has been some material published in The Mountain Path, the magazine published by Sri Ramana Ashramam, the ashram of Sri Ramana Maharshi. In the house of Maurice, I met Eva Molnar from Krakow, Poland. His father, now about 90 years old, was a friend of Maurice's early days in the Theosophical Society. Eva stayed with Maurice for about 6 months and contributed to this article with some of her memories. As she had told me, Maurice was born in 1894 in the Jewish ghetto of Krakow, from a very poor family. At that time, it was very difficult for Jews to receive public education. My grandmother from Odessa told me that only 5% of Jewish children were allowed to attend school. Maurice's father was a very devout man and wanted Maurice to become a rabbi, so Maurice began to learn Hebrew. He ended up speaking 14 or possibly 15 languages altogether. At the age of 10, he spoke fluent Russian, Polish, French, and English and Hebrew. He went on to become an electrical engineer at 20, and his patents for more than 100 electrical and mechanical interventions. Maurice's skills for invention and ingenuity later would be beneficial to the villages of India. He told me that he designed all the hand tools used in the khadi movement of Gandhi, the hand-knit clothing, such as the small and famous hand wheel.